Thank you for joining us. Welcome to LumioseStation.
What's up, LumioseStation, and welcome back to another episode of the Pokémon DataDex with me, TheOneIntegral. In last week's episode of DataDex, we covered Mega Aggron, and I asked you guys, remember, which Pokemon you wanted to see this week, either Weavile or Zoroark. And in the end, Zoroark came out as the strongest, as the winner, so that's who we're covering this week. But of course, as always, we have to have our vote for next week. So what choice do we have this time? Well, we're going Legendary again, and we have a choice of these three Pokemon, the Reggie Trio. We have Regirock, Regice, or Registeel. Which one of the Reggie Trio do you want to see me cover next week? Do you want to see the Rocky Regirock, the Icy Regice, or the Steely Registeel? Let me know down below which one you want to see covered, and of course I'll cover it next week, whichever one comes out on top. But for now, I guess we're going to get into looking at the lovely Zoroark. So Zoroark, it's a pure dark type and is number 571 in the National Pokédex as it was introduced in Generation 5, and it is the Illusion Fox Pokemon. Quick little fun fact for you guys here, Zorua and Zoroark were the first two Generation 5 Pokemon revealed in, of course, their own movie. So, fun fact today there. Dimension-wise for Zoroark, it stands at 5 foot 3 inches tall or 1.6 meters tall and weighs 178.8 pounds or 81.1 kilograms. So it's just sort of, you know, your medium size, medium build Pokemon. It's nothing too amazing. Egg and breeding wise, it's in the field egg group, which means it can breed with most sort of, you know, normal type Pokemon, I guess. And the male-female split is actually more likely to be a male Zoroark or male Zoro when it hatches. 87.5% of the time it's going to be male, and 12.5% of the time it's going to be female. So take from that what you will. Evolution chain and evolution wise, it's sort of, you know, as I said, Zorua is its pre-evolution, and Zorua will evolve into Zoroark starting at level 30, so it's actually fairly quickly evolving, so there's nothing really to worry about there. And then in terms of base stats, if we take a quick look here, you can see its highest base stat is special attack at 120, then we go down to attack and speed at 105, and then down to health points, defense, and special defense, which are all 60. So basically, it's a speedy, offensive Pokemon. Higher special attack than physical attack, but both are pretty high anyway, so you could really use either if you wanted to. Special attack is the most, you know, the most used because the move pool, as we'll see in a minute, is better in terms of special than it is physical, but you can use a physical Zoroark if you are so inclined. And then we come on to the ability here, and this is what brings Zoroark out into its own, as I'm sure you know. Its ability is Illusion, which means it comes out disguised as the Pokemon in the party's last spot. Which means if you have, for example, a Articuno in your, at the back of your party, you are going to have an Articuno come out. Your Zoroark is going to come out, and it's going to look exactly like your Articuno would if that was sent out. So it can be used in some good cases here. You know, you could you could send this, you could disguise it as, I don't know, a poison type Pokemon, and then send Zoroark in. You'll get hit by a psychic type attack possibly, and then you're going to be immune to it. So you could use it in that sort of sense and try and juke the opponent out of the turn. Basically, obviously, once they use the move once and find out that you are immune to it, they're going to know, oh, it's Zoroark, or of course they are, as long as they actually looked at your team before the battle. But generally, that's how you would use it. In some cases, you sort of want to just mess with your opponent's head a bit. And make them always double check. Is it this Pokemon? Is it a different one? Just sort of thinking and having to decide which, whether it actually is Zoroark or whether it's the real Pokemon or whatever. So it's sort of mind games, I guess, with Zoroark. It's not used too exclusively. Sort of Zoroark can just be used. You can just send it out as any Pokemon really, and it can have some good effect. Because obviously you're not going to take a fighting type attack. You might take a different type of attack that you might, resist or take neutral damage from. But generally, that's how you'd use it. Sort of, you wouldn't. Not too many people are going to think too deeply into it. They're sort of just going to use it and have it sort of take a move, I guess. If we take a look at the typing, as I mentioned, it is immune to these psychic type, immune to psychic type moves. Almost forgot then. But we have some other stuff to look at as well. It resists only two types, which are Ghost and Dark. And to be fair, they're not very common types either. It's weak to 3, which are Fighting, Bug, and Fairy. And it's immune to Psychic. As I said, it takes neutral from all the other types. Now, this isn't the brilliant typing, if we're honest. Pure Dark, not great. It means you're very flimsy. You have 3 weaknesses and only 2 resistances. and you take neutral from all, or the very large majority of moves, which means you're not going to resist too much. You're sort of a glass cannon with Zoroark here. I mean, you never run a bulky Zoroark. That wouldn't happen. Only base 60 defense, special defense. That's just not going to happen. And health points, of course. So really, you're just going to go for the offensive with Zoroark here. Typing wise, it's not great. So we're just going to we're going to almost ignore it. We're just going to say, right, we're going to die at some point. We're just going to get all the damage off we can beforehand. So, talking about damage, obviously moves do damage. So let's have a look at some moves it can learn. The first one it can learn via level up is Nasty Plot at level 54. Nasty Plot will sharply raise, one of those, raise, I know it's the right one, raise your special attack sharply, and again this is one of the reasons why it's more commonly used, especially because it actually has Nasty Plot. I mean, it can get Swords Dance as well, but Nasty Plot is sort of a more specialised move for it, and as we'll see in a minute, it has a better special move pool, as I have already explained. Then, at level 64, it can learn Night Daze. This is, I don't want to say its signature move, but it's a move that it's not a very common move. But Night Daze will do damage. It hasn't got 100% accuracy, unfortunately, so that's why you might not want to use it. But it does do damage, and it actually has a chance to lower the opponent's accuracy as well, hence the daze. So you could spam Night Daze and lower their accuracy, and then have to switch out, basically. So it's a viable move, definitely. Moving on to some TMs now. Looking at our first physical move for Zoroark, we have TM27 Return. Now, as you know, I'm including Return here, and it's not a normal type, so you can tell straight off the bat it doesn't have a very good physical move pool. Because why would you use Return if you have another move available that is more specialised? Normal is not super effective against anything, so why would you not have a different type in there that at least has some strengths? So Return is viable though if you want to run yourself a physical Zoroark. Then TM35 we have Flamethrower, very often run on your Zoroark sets for special attack, and the reason for this is because you're weak to bug type moves, so you certainly need a Flamethrower to deal with those Pokemon basically. You don't want a Ninjask to come in and just completely ruin your day by not having anything to take it out with basically. Then we have TM52 Focus Blast. That's a very powerful move. Fighting type, in terms of what moves it will help protect you against, there's not really anything there. Fighting a Fairy is not really going to cover those, but it is good coverage anyway against moves that your Dark type moves might not necessarily hit very well, or types that your Dark type moves might not hit very well. So it will do super effective damage to Rock, Ice, Steel. So it's certainly a viable move, especially because of how powerful it is as well. So it's definitely worth thinking about picking up. Then next up we have TM78 Swords Dance. As I mentioned already, this will sharply rise your physical attacks, so we both have Nasty Plot and Swords Dance available here. And if you're running a physical set, you sort of want this, with the lower 105 physical attack, the Swords Dance will help boost it up quite a lot, so it'll allow you to actually do, decent damage, fair enough, rather than sort of your mediocre physical damage without it. Then at TM86 we have another move here, which is Grass Knot. As you might expect, a grass type move. This does damage depending on the opponent's weight, so in some cases it's not going to do much damage, in some cases it will do a lot. In terms of why you want to use it, well, it's generally good coverage, water, ground, rock again, so it gives you good coverage against some certain moves and certain types, but generally it's just a good choice to have. It's not as good as Flamethrower or Focus Blast, I'd say, but it's certainly a good idea to have, to think about taking it at least and think, okay, what opponents might I face, what generally looking at your whole party of Pokemon, if you've got certain weaknesses against rock types, maybe think about putting a Grass Knot on, Grass Knot on Zoroark instead, who knows. And now the last TM, we have TM97 Dark Pulse. Obviously you're going to get Stab on this move, and it's very common to see on Zoroark. Some reason don't get it by level up, but you do get it on TM, so it's okay. Dark Pulse is going to do decent damage. You get Stab on it as well, and I think it has a chance to flinch the opponent as well, so that's pretty good. In terms of your main move, if you're going for a special attacking Zoroark, that's what Dark Pulse would be. Dark Pulse or Night Daze, I guess, would be your two main moves, but generally Dark Pulse is the one you see more often, just because it's more, I guess, overall more reliable. We have one egg move here for Zoroark, which is Sucker Punch, which obviously if you're running a physical Zoroark you want to think about putting on, because it's a pretty powerful physical dark type move, and obviously gives you priority as well. You have 105 base speed, which isn't bad, but it's not amazing either. Sucker Punch will definitely give you the edge in some situations, and obviously if you're running physical, why would you not run Sucker Punch on it, because you haven't really got any other decent powerful dark type moves available to you that are physical at least. Talking about physical dark type moves, we have another one via the Oras Tutor, and this is Knockoff. Knockoff got a boost in Generation 6, obviously giving it a higher base power, which made a lot of it might have viable on a lot more Pokemon, especially physical Zoroark. We have Sucker Punch here, but obviously Sucker Punch is not going to work in every single situation, because if they're not going to attack you, you can't do any damage. It's not going to work. Whereas Knockoff, as well as knocking off the item, is going to do decent damage as well, combined with your stab, and if it's super effective as well, it's going to do even more there. So it's definitely worth thinking about maybe running both Sucker Punch and Knockoff on a physical Zoroark, just because you can't use Sucker Punch all the time. We then have a few more Oras Tutor moves for Zoroark to have possibly learnt. The first one is Low Kick, which is a fighting type move, and it's very similar to Grass Knot, as in it does more damage to heavier Pokemon. And again, it's just really, as I said earlier, we have a very slim moveset for physical Zoroark, so Low Kick is, it's definitely a viable one. It's going to give you coverage against Steel, Rock, other stuff like that, Ice, stuff you wouldn't otherwise have an advantage against. If it's a very light Pokemon, it's not going to do much damage. However, if it's heavier, you're going to be pretty much set. But Low Kick is a very viable option to have. And then the last move we can have via Tutor and Oras for Zoroark is Trick. Now Trick basically switches your item with the opponent's, which is, we'll look at the sets in a minute, but it has specific use on the sets. So yeah, that's Trick for you really. It can be useful in some situations because, as we've seen for Zoroark, its move pools aren't amazingly huge. It doesn't have, maybe it doesn't have moves it needs necessarily. Maybe it just needs a stab and maybe one other move, and then really you can just play with what you want. You don't need all these moves. So Trick is viable just to have and have a little party trick, basically, because it is called Trick. Okay, so that's all the viable moves there for Zoroark. So if we take a look at the competitive sets, we're going to have 3 here. One sort of basic special attacking Zoroark, one physical attacking Zoroark, and then one final one which is sort of more of a setting up almost and then attacking. So we'll see how it goes, won't we? Let's crack on with the first set, which the moveset is going to contain Dark Pulse or Night Daze, Focus Blast, Flamethrower or Grass Knot, and then Trick. The ability is going to be Illusion. The nature is going to be Timid, held item is a choice of specs, and the EV is going to be Maximum Special Attack, Maximum Speed, and the rest in Special Defense. So what have we got here? Moveset wise, Dark Pulse or Night Daze. This is your stab move. This is the one you want to use as long as it's going to do damage basically. Dark Pulse I would recommend really. Night Daze has got a lower accuracy, so you don't really want to risk it too much. So Dark Pulse is what I would recommend. Then we have Focus Blast, which is just sort of your powerful move, which is going to cover Rock types, Ice types, Steel types. Then we have Flamethrower or Grass Knot. Depends what you want here. Flamethrower will cover your Bug types for you, as well as Steel types again and Ice types again. And then Grass Knot will cover Rock types again, ground types again, but will help you against heavier Pokemon. So it really depends on what your team is lacking at the time. If you have a particular weakness against Bug types, run Flamethrower. If you have a particular weakness against Rock or ground types, run Grass Knot, just to give you the extra sort of benefit and bonus, I guess. Then the final move we have is Trick. Now this is linked with the item we have, which is Choice Specs. If you go in and you see the enemy is a physical attacker, you could be naughty and go Trick, switch your item for theirs, they get a Choice Specs, you get whatever they're holding. Choice Specs is going to do absolutely nothing for them apart from lock them into one move and one move only. And because you're Zoroark, you could switch in, disguised as, for example, a Psychic type Pokemon, or Poison type rather. They could use a Psychic type move against you, it's not going to affect you, and then they get locked in. So they have to switch out. They literally have to switch. They can't do anything to you. They have to switch out. You're forcing a switch there, so you get 2 free turns basically of whatever you want to do. So yeah, that would be a pretty good combination. Or you can just choice spec something that would normally have, for example, leftovers, so then they're stuck in using rest or something crazy like that. I don't know. It's what you have to sort of analyze the situation and figure out what you want to do with that. But it's the option. If it's if you want it, the option is there. Illusion is your ability, as we mentioned, because obviously it's going to help on with that. And then the nature is going to be Timid, because this is going to increase our speed and decrease our physical attack, which we're not using. The speed is high because we want to be able to trick and choice specs as fast as possible, and also just be quicker in general, just to do even more damage, And then moving on to the EVs, we have maximum special attack and maximum speed, just for all the speed and all the power, and then the rest in special defense, just to boost the special defense up a bit, because if we look at the moves we're weak to, for example, types we're weak to, fighting, bug, and fairy. Okay, fighting is physical, but bug and fairy, generally the most powerful bug and fairy type moves are special, so increasing our special defense there helps us be a bit more bulky against them, and maybe actually survive one or two of those attacks, because that would be helpful in the end, because then we can actually get more than one attack off ourselves. So yeah, that's where the special defense goes in there rather than physical defense or health points. But in terms of how you use a set, you go in, you use the best attack really. If you can see an opportunity to trick your choice specs over, go for that indeed, because then you can be a bit more flexible, and also you've screwed over the opponent. Of course, don't choice specs to a special attacker, that wouldn't be good. That's just going to make them do more damage to you. Do it to a physical attacker or a tank, and generally you're going to be happy days there. So generally that's how you use that set. Just go in, trick maybe if you need to, and then just do attacks. That's basically it. If we move on to the second set here, this is the physical set we talked about. The moveset is going to be Swords Dance, Sucker Punch, Knock Off, and then Low Kick or Return. Ability is Illusion again. HS time is Adamant or Jolly. Held item is a Focus Sash or a Life Orb, and the EVs are Maximum Attack, Maximum Speed, and the rest in Special Defense. So attacks, what have we got here? Well, the first one here is Swords Dance. As I mentioned earlier, you sort of want to have Swords Dance just to bulk up your attack a bit more, because it's not amazing, whereas if you get Swords Dance off, it's going to be pretty darn good. So Swords Dance is not needed, but if you switch in and then if you're forcing a switch or something along those lines, if you have a free turn basically, use Swords Dance just to get the extra damage for the future. Then we have Sucker Punch. Now Sucker Punch is going to be, I guess, your main move. If you can predict they're going to attack you, use Sucker Punch. If it's something that's going to set up on you, don't use Sucker Punch, go for something else like Knock Off. But Sucker Punch is generally going to be your biggest damage dealing attack and stuff like that. Knock Off, as I mentioned, is your next move. This can be used to get rid of items like leftovers or I want to say choice items, but they're not, not really something you'd want to knock off because it sort of limits the Pokemon. But other moves like that, other items like that, Assault Vest maybe, stuff like that, knock off can certainly help with, as well as doing decent damage. Because if you know they're not going to attack you, don't use Sucker Punch, use knock off instead, just to get some good damage off. And then finally we have Low Kick or Return. Which one you want to use here depends on, again, your team. If you need some more fighting type moves, why not go for Low Kick? However, if you have enough fighting type moves, go for Return, because Low Kick isn't going to do much damage to most things, but in the case that a fighting type move is needed, it will do the job. Whereas Return is going to do sort of general good damage overall, I guess. Ability is Illusion again, because we have to have that. Adamant or Jolly Nature. The reason we have a choice here is because we have Sucker Punch. We don't need to necessarily be fast if you're going to rely on Sucker Punch. So you could either be Adamant and just say, okay, I'm going to rely on Sucker Punch as much as possible, or you could be Jolly and say, okay, I'm not going to have to rely on Sucker Punch as much, I can use my other moves and still be fairly fast. Held item is then a Focus Sash or a Life Orb. Again, this is up to you. Focus Sash can allow you to survive one move, and then, so as long as you're fast enough, maybe you'll be able to get two. So maybe if you're using a Jolly set, you can use the Focus Sash so you can survive one move, and then use another. If you're going for Adamant set, use the Life Orb just to bulk up those attacks you're going for in the first place, so you can get at least one strong, good attack off, and then maybe Sucker Punch afterwards to get even more damage off. EV's maximum attack and speed for the most power and the most speed we can have, and the rest in special defense, because obviously, as I said just now, we want to bulk up that special defense to take some bug and fairy type moves more than anything else, really. How would you use this set? Well, it's, again, very similar, I guess. Go in, Swords Dance if you have the chance to. Don't just say, okay, I'm going to Swords Dance, because you could easily get one hit killed. If you have Focus Sash, yeah, maybe sure, go for Swords Dance, and then Sucker Punch the next turn. So that would work there, You could Swords Dance, get down to 1 health point, and then you'd be able to Sucker Punch, because they might think, okay, I'll just finish them off. And then you can Sucker Punch them, and obviously, depending on the Pokemon, you might be able to take them out from there. With your ×2 attack Sucker Punch, maybe, who knows, we'll have to see. But if you're using a Life Orb, maybe hold off on the Swords Dance. Don't say, okay, I'm just going to Swords Dance the first turn. Maybe Sucker Punch the first turn to get some more damage off and take them off sort of in 2 turns like that. Of course, most people are going to expect a special attacking Zoroark as well, remember? So you could always duke that and, wait until they send in a specially bulky Pokemon and then think, ha, I'm going to screw you over by doing loads of damage and, just sort of taking them out in 2 hits. Because they're not expecting that, they're expecting a special attack. So yeah, there's not really much more to say for that set, it's just a case of doing damage, I guess, and knowing when to use what move. maybe it depends on the item as well. Focus Sash or Life Orb. Focus Sash, go for a Sword Dance, Sucker Punch. Life Orb, maybe a bit more flexible and think about what you're doing beforehand. So if we then move on to the last Pokemon for today, this is more of a setting set, as I said, and we have Nasty Plot in this set. So the moveset is Nasty Plot, as I just mentioned, Dark Pulse, Focus Blast, and then Flamethrower or Grass Knot. Ability is Illusion again, Nature is Timid again, Held item is a Life Orb, I guess again, and the EV is going to be maximum special attack, maximum speed, and the rest in special defense. So, very similar to how we had Sword Dance just now, we want to use Nasty Plot if we have the opportunity to. So go in, Nasty Plot, you have 2 times special attack and you can do a lot of damage. But obviously don't just go in and do it anyway, only do it if you have a free turn. If not, just go for go for another attack and just do damage really. Timid Nature is here because we want to be fast and get these Nasty Plots and Dark Pulses off, do as much damage as possible. Life Orb is here to boost the damage. We're not looking at staying in the battle for too long here. We sort of want to go in, Nasty Plot, attack, 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 do damage, finish them off, take them out, whatever, LiDAR, what have you. And that really goes in line with the moves as well. Dark Pulse is a powerful dark type move you've got with Stab. Focus Blast is very powerful itself, so you can use that. And then Flamethrower or Grass Knot again depends on your team, whether you need some coverage against grass types, ice types, etc. or if you need some coverage against ground and rock. So it's up to the rest of your team there, you have to sort of check it out and see what's going on. EV wise, maximum special attack and speed for all the speed and all the power, because that's what we want to do here, just do loads of power, and the rest in special defense, as I've mentioned twice now, just because that needs bulking up a bit more to take some of those special attacks. How would you use this set? Well, I mentioned it already really, go in, if you can, Nasty Plot, and then attack, really. That's sort of it. There's not really much more to say for that. It's a basic Life Orb set, so you just go in and do damage and try and take the opponent out. So, not much more to say apart from that. So I guess this is where I end off today's episode of the Pokemon DataDex. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to hit the like button down below, as well as voting for next week's Pokemon. Which of the Reggie trio do you want to see? Do you want to see Reggie Rock? Do you want to see Reggie Ice? Or Regice? Or do you want to see Reggie Steel? Let me know in the comment section down below, and the one with the most votes will be covered in next week's episode. But for now, this is going to be it for me for today. I'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, my friends.